Hello, my name's Amy Rofail, and I'm with the Jerusalem Connection Report, and this is your Friday Red Alert. Today I would like to discuss how the tax dollars of free people everywhere, including Americans, is being used in the UN and with various NGOs who operate under the guise of human rights issues to actually be anti-Semitic and impose BDS notions to their groups. A watchdog group called the NGO Monitor, which you can find on the internet, has devoted itself to vetting various NGOs worldwide. They have found that even though they tout the agenda of human rights, many of them have ties to nefarious origins. The results of these studies include that NGOs seem to have some connections to, and personnel seem to have connections to BDS and even terrorist organizations. Recently, in August of 2015, the London Times had a series of articles reporting that Yasmin Hussein, currently Amnesty International's Director of Faith and Human Rights, actually has ties to Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. This, of course, is very alarming. The Human Rights and International Humanitarian Law Secretariat posted in August of 2015 its 2014 annual report. 4 governments, Denmark, Sweden, Switzerland, and Netherlands, have budgeted over $13 million to NGOs. The problem is that many of these NGOs were stationed in Ramallah, and the funding was actually going to support political warfare against Israel and adoption of extreme demonization rhetoric and singling out the Jewish communities both abroad and the nation of Israel, and had a very limited focus overall on the Palestinian alleged violations issues. Clearly, this wasn't the intent of the dollars that those 4 nations originally contributed to these NGOs. In addition, there's various war crimes currently being levied against Israel in the UN from the last Gaza confrontation. The groups advocating these war crime prosecution are using the statements of the very NGOs that were identified in Ramallah as their documentation of these alleged crimes. But the vetting that these organizations are biased and anti-Israel and anti-Semitic in their political agenda makes their accusations and their statements somewhat non-credible. There's a complicated web of conspiracy that I would argue has spiritual origins and therefore requires a spiritual set of countermeasures. First and foremost is prayer. But that said, the spiritual is often demonstrated in the physical with the various actions taken by groups that hurt Israel and the Jewish people in all sorts of ways, both physically, economically, and politically. So, as Christians and Jews and freedom-loving people who support Israel's right to exist and the Jewish community's right to operate worldwide in a healthy and just way, I argue that we also have to use cognitive measures to counter this BDS movement and its offshoots. And that includes our holding accountable our media figures in the West to report the truth, to include the whole truth and the whole context of actions that take place in the Middle East, and that these organizations are vetted for where the tax dollars go, how they are used, and if personnel have nefarious ties to agencies that are clearly terrorist or openly anti-Semitic. The U.S. provides 1/5 of the funding for the UN out of 193 countries. That means the majority of Americans' dollars are what supports the UN. We need to hold political officials, appointed and elected, accountable for where our money is going and how it's used, and certainly to further human rights issues around the world. This is a just cause. But we must make sure it is a just cause in truth, and that it is not a guise of human rights issues, that our dollars goes to funds organizations that are clearly anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, and anti-Semitic. It is my plea to listeners and viewers all over the world to please keep this in mind and never let the truth get swept under the rug. Find it, look for it, and share it as best you can, how you can. Shabbat Shalom.